The recording has started.
There you go.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to session 5 of Hold It Open and Close the Deal. We are going to be jumping in and discussing the open house performance today. I know it's probably the section that everyone's sort of been waiting for and just wishing we would just get to as we go out every single week and do our open house. So today and this week, and actually a little bit of next week, we're going to be talking about what do we say when someone walks in, right? We're there at the open house. We've done everything right leading up to it. Now what? Someone walks in. What do we say? What do we do? And how do we turn them into business? So excited for the call today. Let's do this. Let's go through the guidelines of the program, and then I want to open up the call for a little bit just to hear from anyone that may have questions thus far, hear about any wins from open houses over the last couple of weeks as well. It was actually a really busy weekend at open houses here in the Portland market, as well as for some of my partners across the country. As you know, we have partners in about 7 states now. As I got feedback from this weekend, it was obviously a holiday weekend, but it seems like things were definitely moving in different areas of town. So let's just jump in real quick. Guidelines for the program, they're there on page 2. We go over them every single week. You'll get bored of me saying them, but we'll go through them anyway real quick. Remember, only paid participants may listen and contribute on the call. Everybody starts this call on mute. So everyone's muted. When we ask for questions, or if you have a question, just *6 on your phone. It will unmute your phone. Don't put the call on hold. If you do, it will automatically disconnect you, and you'll have to log back in. And then obviously our goal is for everyone to show up to the call prepared and completing all assignments prior to the call, which means actually doing the work of the open house as well. I wanted to share just a really cool story. I got an email from one of you on the call this week. It was actually over the weekend, and this agent's actually in the Portland market, so in one of our offices just a little bit west of where my team is. So awesome agent in her own right, but has been plugged in and focused and doing all the activities around the open house. And she shared with me just last week that at one of her open houses during the session, she picked up a buyer. A buyer lead came in, connected with them, got their contact information, and just last week they put that buyer in contract for $489,900, so about $490,000 of volume from an effective open house where the focus was getting that lead. What's interesting is she said that during the class over the last 4 weeks, just with the commitment of doing the open houses that we talked about, hey, go out there and do one, go out there and do one, go out there and do one, right? Getting into activity, getting in front of buyers and sellers. They've also procured a listing from an open house and put that seller into contract. So right now they have just over $1 million in pending volume from open houses over the past 4 weeks from just being focused on the activity. Now, I'll be the first person to tell you that wasn't just because she's going through Hold It Open and Close the Deal, right? However, my intention and my goal is that we think differently, we show up differently, we say things differently. So these little changes in our business can mean the difference between landing that buyer, can mean the difference between saying the right thing, can mean the difference between them giving you their contact information before them leaving and them not. And ultimately, when you look at her business, right, it could be said that she's on track to do, right? She has $1 million pending in just the 4 weeks. We're going into week 5 of the program. Haven't even done week 5 yet. She's been through it for 4 weeks and has $1 million pending just from open house. That doesn't mean there's other business out there that isn't happening for her world that isn't open house driven. But I wanted to share that because the reality is it's how I built my business too. Remember, in week 1, we talked about that conversation that Gary Keller had with me when he was asking me where my business came from. And I said, hey, the majority of it is all open houses at this point. And he told me any lead generation strategy, any lead generation activity could become a $20 million business. Honestly, whether she realizes it or not, her name's Mandy Clark, by the way, whether Mandy realizes it or not, she's on track to do $1 million a month right, from open house business if she stays consistent with it. That's a $10 to $12 million a business a year from one lead generation strategy. What would Gary say? Hey, you could probably get it to 20. So then the goal is, how do I continue making this better? How do I continue making this better? How do I increase the number of opens that I'm doing potentially in my schedule if my goal is to do more business? But I thought it was cool to hear just that feedback. And I'll tell you, that is just one of the many emails I get typically during the Hold It Open and Close the Deal course based on the agents that commit to doing the activity. It's so interesting, right? Fast Track courses and MAPS coaching is such an awesome opportunity for us to learn techniques, and I'm going to share even today. I added a script to the course just this week. Why? Because I heard it. I heard an open house script from Ben Kinney, and I said, wow, I'm going to share that with everybody. So we'll go through that today. But we have the opportunity to change what we do, or adjust what we do, or add to what we do based on proven techniques. The question is, why wouldn't we do that? Right? Why wouldn't we do that if we can see that the results that others are getting, right? Like Mandy got, I want those results, right? If I put $1 million in escrow every month from open houses that I wasn't otherwise doing before, what would that do? You're on your way to building an MREA team, right? You're on your way of building your economic model and your lead generation model and your budget model and your organizational model around an activity. And that's the takeaway for us. Anyone else want to share either wins or struggles they've been having while they've been doing those open houses? That's okay too. We learn from talking about struggles as well. I don't shy away from that. If anyone wants to share, by all means, just feel free to *6 and share with the group, or ask questions, things that you've been struggling with. Maybe we haven't seen that success. Maybe we haven't gotten those contact names from our opens. We're going to discuss that this week, but by all means, just interrupt me and share if you wish. I did want to share that conversation or that email I've received. And what's interesting about Mandy is she can't be on the calls live. So she listens. She has a scheduled time in her week every week to listen to the call recordings because she's in a networking group that meets at the same time. So I commend her commitment to just growth and also doing the activities, which I know she's doing. So, all right, let's talk about what we're going to discuss this week. So we are going to get to the 5th P, right? We talked every week about these 6 Ps, the psyche or the mindset of the open house, the preparation of it, the promotion of it, the process of it. Today we're going to talk about the performance. In fact, the next couple days we'll talk about, or a couple sessions we'll talk about performance, and then we'll get to the post. But the performance, some may say, wow, this is the most important piece. Yes, I suppose it is, right? Because if you don't perform well, you could prepare yourself to death, and if you don't show up and perform, no one's going to see, right? No one's going to see the play, or no one's going to see the performance. So performance is ridiculously critical. But keep in mind what we talked about last week. If you missed the call or you haven't systematized that call into your business, go back, because you won't be able to perform for as many people as possible if we don't implement week 4 of our calls. Just as quick review, last week we talked about open house preparation, right? Administratively and operationally, what happens? That digital folder, that's going to come up today, because in performance we're going to say, well, what do I say and how do I use it and when do I use it? But that digital folder should include, remember, a flyer for the house, a digital flyer, the active, pending, and solds for the neighborhood, an economic report, perhaps a total market overview specific for the neighborhood, and any item of value that you may be able to put into that digital folder that you believe you could trade for contact information, right? Remember, we're traders in information. And then obviously in that digital folder is also that the Google Doc, the lead sheet, which we'll discuss a little bit more today. Then we talked about, once the operational piece is done, make sure we're lead generating around that open house. We talked about the mail going out in advance, right? We gave that weekly schedule. We talked about the just listed, just pended, just sold, potentially doing non-owner occupied postcards for renters, right? People in the neighborhood that don't own homes if we're trying to drive buyer traffic in. But ultimately, remember, This open house strategy is really seller driven. I love that Mandy shared that, hey, we have a listing, right, taken from my open house. And actually that listing or that seller is going to buy with us up to $450, right? That'll be another transaction. So remember, seller driven lead generation around that open house is really what we're pushing. Then we talked about marketing that open house. How do we get more people through? Putting that sign up on that Tuesday or Wednesday before the open house, about 4 or 5 days in advance, right? Open Saturday, open Sunday, open Thursday from 1 to 3 or 2 to 4, whatever your schedule might look like. We talked about making sure you get 7 to 10 signs out, trying to strategically choose an open that only needs about 3 signs to get there. We talked about our digital outreach, posting to sites like Craigslist and Zillow and Trulia and right, RMLS, and it drives internet traffic, posting on social media, sending it to your database. All those things, what's interesting is if we choose to do one or choose to do something else or say, I'm not set up for that, or, well, I'm not going to do that piece of it. That's fine, that's a choice. It's just, remember in MREA, Gary said this, that what they found, and that was the whole point of modeling, right? What they found was agents do specific things to get specific results. So I'm just sharing specifically what we do to get the specific result. The minute we start changing it, the minute we start choosing what we would like to do, just don't be surprised if the result is different. Or if we're not getting those results, just be honest with ourselves and say, hey, am I following the system entirely? And then we went through the 7-day open house schedule, right? Day 1, selecting the open house. Day 2, posting online and obtaining that call list, mailing the invites. Day 3, posting it online again, calling the neighbors. The sign goes up. Day 4, posting online again, calling the neighbors or finishing through that list, inviting our database tags, calling all the sign calls and internet leads if it is our listing. We've been tracking. Day 5, social media posts, preparing that digital folder, posting it online. Day 6, posting it online. Again, social media posts, door knocking, and inviting your key sphere that might live in the neighborhood. And then day 7, either completing that door knocking, doing all that door knocking, getting those directionals up, posting it on social media that you're there, even doing a live Facebook post potentially as well from the open house has been effective. So that's your 7-day open house schedule. It's easy to blitz through it. What's not so easy is making sure all those things happen. What do we need to do? We need to set a schedule. We have to have blocks of time in our calendar that shows open house prep, right? That we know, hey, during this 1-hour block, or during this 30-minute block, or during this 2-hour block, depending on how many open houses we're doing this week, I'm going to do that prep. I'm going to make those calls. I'm going to go out and door knock. I'm going to make those posts. If we are an individual agent, we just inherited a lot of work. That is our job in order to get us to the performance. Questions around that 7 days? If you have questions, as always, just feel free to jump in and start that. Okay, this week, let's jump into the performance part of it. One thing I like to share before we launch is understand we practice in order to win when we perform. Right? It is no different than going out onto a field of a sporting team or going out onto a stage if we're in theater. Like, we have to practice if we're going to perform. I think so often open houses are just so routine. Like, they're what we start with. They're just it's the mundane part of real estate that we don't practice our script. We don't practice what we're going to say. We don't practice getting contact information. So what happens is sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This week is all about what happens when that door opens and future clients walk through the door. So we're going to go through a bit slower this week some of these scripts and why we say things certain ways. Hopefully you have your workbooks in front of you. We're on page 3, scripting at your open house. So we're going to go through first the door knocking script. Why? Because before someone shows up, typically we should be out in the field door knocking. We should be out in the field door knocking. So let's talk about that simple conversation conversation. Again, this is where practice shows up. This is where committing to this door knocking script, and some of us, I know, right? Because I am just like everyone else, that we hear the word script, or we hear that, okay, we're going to go through a script, and eyes roll, and we start disconnecting, and we start checking email. Why? Because we're like, it's a script. I'll look at it later. What I would say is, if we understand these are just conversations that we're going to have, we're going to practice these conversations. And I will tell you this, the difference between success and failure in open houses, or frustration in open houses, is the conversations we have. So, door knocking. Remember, about a day or maybe the day of the open house, I'm going to go out, and my goal is to door knock about 20 to 25 doors. That's it. It's not a big deal. I'm not changing the world, but consistently over time, if I'm going to do 50 open houses every single year, or 100 open houses every single year as a team, think about that. If after or around every open, we're door knocking 25 homes, all of a sudden, we've knocked 2,500 doors in a neighborhood, or in your town, or in your marketplace. And what am I going to say? Very simple. It is not earth-shattering. I have our team script right there for you on page 3 of your workbook. Simply put, all we're going to say is this: hey, I'm holding an open house just down the street and wanted to invite you to come by and take a look at the house. I found that people that live in the neighborhood typically live here because they love it. So if you have any friends or family who would be interested in the neighborhood, would you call them and invite them as well? Non-controversial, right? You're not asking them for anything. All you're doing is inviting them. You're inviting them. One of the things I would add to that, and this is something that we've been experimenting with and had great success, is just say, I'm holding an open house just down the street, and your neighbors wanted me to invite you. Right? The minute you can get a personal connection between a neighbor and someone that you're talking to, all of a sudden, human beings want to help human beings, right? If their neighbor invited them, that invitation is not coming from you as a salesperson, it's coming from their neighbor. And they will feel slightly more obligated to show up and check it out. But your goal is for them to do that. Why? Because whether they are going to sell or buy, or know someone that's going to buy or sell or not, it's about contacts, right? We know, based on the lead generation model, we need to connect with this person 8 times right after we meet them to develop a relationship. So I hope the first time at their door. I hope the second time at an open house. We've talked through with a follow-up of the open house, and we're going to talk more about that next week. But our goal is to build clients out of every one of these activities. So I'm going to do the door knocking script. I'm going to do that to about 25 doors. How many people are going to open? Probably 5, maybe 6, right? Depending on what day you door knock and what time you door knock. Don't get discouraged. Every 5 is a met, right? Every one of those people is a met that get added to your database. And think about it. Whether you're able to convert and get their email and phone number or not, you now have that in your database. Why? Because you already know their address. And clearly, you should be able to get their name. And if not, you can look that up later, which we'll talk about. But door knocking is one of the fastest, easiest, most effective ways to building a database that you could possibly commit to. So now, all of a sudden, you might say, hey, wait a second. This is an open house course. And we're talking about circle prospecting. We're talking about door knocking. We're talking about all these other activities. Interestingly enough, the foundational activity of the open house will push us into supportive lead generation activities. That when you take a step back and you're building this out into a really big business, which is the whole point, you can begin to see how any one of these other activities can be leveraged. You can hire someone to do it. You can bring in a buyer's agent to do it, a showing assistant to do it, an inside or outside sales agent to do it. That door knocking piece can be leveraged as well. And what a great way to train agents. We've done that with our inside sales agents. As they come onto the team and they're going through a boot camp for inside sales, guess what? They go through door knocking as well. They're inside and outside sales. So always, right, if you're taking notes, write that down. I may be door knocking today. Someone else may be door knocking tomorrow. Now, let's keep going about that on that door knocking topic. So you've knocked on the door, they've opened it up, you've invited them, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, nope, don't know anyone living in the neighborhood, I don't want to sell, like, I appreciate the invite, right? It's going to be a fine conversation, but it may not lead to immediate business. Now, the cool thing is there's 1 time out of 10, or even if it's a couple times out of 100, it will lead to immediate business. That's just adding in to your business planning strategy. But let's keep that conversation going. The other thing that I would say when they open up the door is this. I typically follow up that conversation and say this. I want to find out when they're thinking about selling, right? Here's a homeowner. I'm in front of them. I just invited them to an open house. They see them out there working. I then follow that up and say, hey, you know what? We've already had some really great interest in the home. And I've been asked to keep some agents and buyers up to date with any other homes that might be coming on the market. Have you thought of selling in the near future? Now, what does that do? It lets them know that there's interest in the home that you have on the market. It lets them know that you have real estate agents and buyers that you want to keep up to date with anything new coming on the market, and it gives you permission to ask if they've thought about selling, right? We have some people that are interested. I've told them I keep them up to date on the market. Have you thought about selling in the next year or so? No, not me. Okay. Do you know if any of your neighbors have been thinking about selling? What is that doing? You're asking them to go, they're going through their Rolodex in their mind. Have you heard about any neighbors? Have they thought about selling? Basically just continuing to ask questions to keep that conversation going. Now, here's what we'll close with. Even if that's no, 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 and no, my goal is to get as much contact information from that neighbor as possible. So I'm going to offer 2 other things, right? That's my goal. What can I offer, right? Remember, I'm a trader. I trade information for value, and the value to me is their contact information. So I'll ask them one of these 2 questions or both. Would it be of value to you if I kept you up to date with what's coming on the market around you in your neighborhood and what homes are selling for? Would it be of value to you if? That's in your workbook under valuable trade scripts and powerful questions. But would it be of value to you if I, right? And then you have to do something for them. But here's why we phrase it that way, and here's why it is a script, right? Don't get too entrepreneurial with the beginning of that question. You can end that question any way you wish, but the beginning is the script. Would it be of value to you? Because human nature is not going to say no, right? Think about that. You're asking someone, hey, and again, if you say it with excitement and it shows that you believe it's valuable, it's very hard for someone else to tell you what you have is not valuable, right? Would it be of value to you if I did this? No, no value, right? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, well, even if they don't want it, well, I guess so, sure, right? Because they don't want to say no. It's a great script for not getting a no. The other script is this. Would you be offended if I let you know when the home down the street eventually sells and what it sells for and how many offers they receive? Right? You have information that they probably want. If you ask them if they want it in a way that's difficult for them to say no, then the next follow-up question is, great, what's an email address, and I'll email that to you. Right? So would you be offended if I let you know when the house down the street actually sells and what it sells for? And actually how many offers we receive? Well, it's hard for them to say, yes, I'd be offended, right? Would you be offended if I let you know? No. Great. The minute they say no, they won't be offended, and who would say they'd be offended to that? The minute they say no, that's when you say, what's a good email address? I'll email you the information when it sells. And then what do you have? Now you have their address because you're standing at their door. You have their name. You have their email address. It sounds like a pretty complete contact record for your database. Now, here's one more question I'm going to give you that oftentimes for whatever reason we don't ask because we feel like, it's just awkward or I'm being too pushy. If they gave you their email address, I would say 80% of the time we should be able to get their phone number. If they gave you their email address, 80% of the time we should be able to get their phone number with one simple question. Okay, great. I will email that to you when I have that information. In case the email bounces back, what's a good number to reach you? You see, if they just gave you your email and you committed to send them something, that's a very natural question. Now, if we just say, hey, can I get your phone number too? Oftentimes what happens, I use email. Just email me. That's fine. And that's still a win, guys, right? It's not the end of the world if they say that. However, by just restructuring that question and saying, great, I'm going to email that to you as soon as it sells. If in case that email bounces back, what's a good number to reach you? It's just a natural flow. It's a conversation. And so all of a sudden you've turned your door knocking strategy into, you hope they show to the open house. But you found out if they're going to sell. You found out if they know anybody that's going to sell. You found out if they have anyone that's looking in the neighborhood. You've also exchanged contact information for some value. And now what happens? They're going to be put on a plan. You're going to send them a thank you card. And we'll talk through all those steps. But all of a sudden, you've added a MET to your database. And for every 12 METs that you add to your database, remember how much business you get over time. 2 pieces, 2 deals. For every 12 people you add and consistently follow up with, you're going to get 2 deals. It's statistically proven in our industry. That's why we door knock. It's one of the fastest, quickest, easiest, and most productive and effective ways to add people to your database. Great, you're done door knocking. You put up your signs, the open house starts, and someone walks in. Now what? Well, here's our strategy. It has been our strategy for the last, 7 years. I want to know if I'm talking to a seller or I'm talking to a buyer. Why? Because at the end of the day, my goal is the same. Whether it's a buyer or a seller, I want their contact information. Quite honestly, that is why I'm there. It's why every one of my agents does an open house. It's for contact information. It's not to sell the house that I'm sitting in. It's not to sell a house to that person yet. My first win, my first objective, my first goal is to get contact information. And honestly, that takes a lot of pressure away. We don't have to create this huge relationship. We don't have to sell them a house. We don't have to get what they're looking for. We don't have to list their house. We don't have to run out and show them property. All we want to do is connect in such a way that we provide value. We know who we're talking to. We know if they're a buyer or a seller. We know exactly which category they're going to end up in our database, and we get their contact information. So the first question I ask, and it's going to sound simple, and I told you right in the beginning, I'm a fairly simple individual. This question is the question that changed everything in our open house strategy. And it's this. Are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Not earth-shattering, is it? Are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? And I will tell you, if you just memorize that one line, and if you started every open house visitor off with that one question, one, it starts with a question. One, it's not a yes or no, and 2, it allows you to go down the path, the critical sales path of whether they're a buyer or seller. Why? Because immediately they have to tell you, am I a buyer or am I a seller? If they happen to live in the neighborhood, congratulations, that's exactly who you want through your open house. They're a neighbor, and we'll go through what we say after that. If they say, we're just kind of out shopping, great. We know that they're now a buyer, and we're going to figure out, right, how do we have conversations with that buyer to eventually get their contact information? So here's the script again. Are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Now, if they're a neighbor, I have one goal. I need to get this future seller into my database. First of all, they may be an immediate seller, and I don't know that yet. But I need to get this immediate or future seller into my database. So, first thing I ask, great, my name is Chris. What was your name? Oftentimes they'll give you their full name, but if they don't and they just say Bob, that's not good enough for me. I want their last name. Why? Because if I have their last name and I know they live in the neighborhood, what can I do? I can find them, right? I can do a lookup. I can have the title company. Here's a name. They live in this neighborhood. Find their address for me. And all of a sudden, I've added them to their database with only getting their name. So even if they are not conversational, even if you're just off your game and you don't follow your scripts and all you did was found out that they lived in the neighborhood and got their last name, they should be added to your database. We are spending 2 hours there. We've spent about 4, maybe 5 hours on the entire open house process. Make sure you make it worth it. I will trade hours for names. I will trade hours for contact information. Right? There's 2 ways to build a database. You can pay for it. You can absolutely, right, pay for it and build a big database online, right? Online lead gen, that's what you're doing. You're paying for people to click through and give them your contact information. Understand open houses, we are using our time to get that. So don't leave there without contact information. They're a neighbor? Great. My name's Chris. What was your name? Awesome. And what was your last name? See, even if they gave you their first name and you follow up with, and what was your last name, no one's going to say, I'd rather not give you that. See, it's just getting comfortable with asking questions. It's just getting comfortable with asking questions. Now, after they give me their name, and they said they live in the neighborhood, I typically try to figure exactly where they live. Great, what street do you live on? Oh, I love that street. How do you like the neighborhood? Right, and then it becomes a conversation. We don't have to script through every single thing in that conversation, right? I'm a firm believer that this has to feel like a conversation. But again, are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? They're a neighbor. Awesome. My name is Chris Suarez. What was your name? And what was your last name? Cool. So you live in the neighborhood. Which street do you live on? Now, you'll know whether they're super private by that point or not. But most people will say, oh, I live on 45th, or I live on Klickitat, or wherever they live. Great. How do you like the neighborhood? And then my script comes in. This is the script I use to get their contact information. Again, I'm going to look to try to trade them something. What do I have with me? A digital device with about 5 or 6 items of value. So my first question, are you familiar with the property values in the area? And what are most sellers going to say? Yeah, I kind of follow them online. I watch Zillow, or yeah, I kind of go to open houses. And here's my would it be of value to you script. Would it be valuable to have a neighborhood report emailed to you monthly so you can just stay on top of what's going on in the neighborhood, what's coming on the market, what's selling, what's going into contract, how many offers there were? Like, would it be of value to you? If they say no, that's fine. You have some other scripts, don't you? And you have 4 other things to offer them. So the next thing I would say is I'd go down to my value trade scripts and I'd try to use the would you be offended, right? Would you be offended if I sent you the information on when this home sells so you know what it closes for? Like, just go through the questions you have in an attempt to give them something in exchange for having to get their email address or phone number. We'll go through one more script later as well, which is sort of the catch-all. But you're going to have just a conversation about who they are in their neighborhood, especially if they're a neighbor. Now, what happens if they're a buyer? And we may right now, because we're not doing all those activities to find the sellers, we may historically have received more buyers into our open house than not. Again, remember, are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Oh, we just begun our search, right? We're just kind of looking. Now, my next question is an important one. The next question is, great, how have you been getting into homes? Learn that question. That, once again, is a script, and here's why. Because I want to know how painful their search has been. I also want to know if they are using an agent, right? So you'll never hear me say, do you have an agent? Because most times, buyer's response is, yes, I do. Right? Why? It's like when you walk into Nordstrom and they say, hey, can I help you? And you say, no, I'm good. Right? It's a canned response. Do you have an agent? Yes, thanks. They know if they say that, you'll leave them alone, as you should. So my script is, how have you been getting into homes? Because if they've been getting into homes and they say, well, we're just going to open houses, they certainly don't have an agent, or they certainly don't have a good one. Right? If they say, oh, my agent's been sending us some stuff, great, who's your agent? And then I will honor that, I will commend them for having an agent, and I will say something great about that agent. So I honor that relationship. However, by asking them how they've been getting into homes, typically, if they don't have a great agent, it hasn't been going well. Well, we kind of just see what, we're just starting our search, we see what pops up online, and immediately I go into what? My value script. Well, would it be of value to have a list of the other open houses in the area this weekend? So again, in my digital folder, I pulled up in MLS, hey, what's open this weekend, right? My actives, my pendings, my solds, my list of open houses, right? So if I have that list, now I know they're a buyer. They say they've been going to open. How often would that be? Hey, here's everything in the neighborhood that's open this weekend with the times that it's open. Here's a list with the addresses and directions. Knock yourself out, right? You're not asking them for business. You're just trading a list of available homes that are open for what? Well, you're going to need to email it to them. Would it be of value to you to have a list of all the available homes with the addresses so you can drive by? Would it be of value to you if I put together a private tour in one afternoon of everything that interests you instead of having to wait for them to be open? Some of the best homes are never open. Right? All I'm trying to do once I find out that they're a buyer is find some sort of value in my digital folder to share with them. Now, what about those economic reports? You will get the open house visitors that are clearly high vector 4, right? High C personalities, and they say yes. When you say, hey, are you familiar with property values? Yes, actually, I spreadsheeted out, right? I mean, we've all received one of those. And my goal in having those economic reports is if for some reason someone's difficult to start a conversation with, then I can say, I was reading an interesting article about the market. Our market has just been crazy the last 3 months. And there's a lot of talk of, will it continue? Will it not? I was reading this article in whatever article it was, right? Wall Street Journal, New York Times, wherever you are, right? The Oregonian for us. I'll read that article into a conversation and say, hey, I think you'd enjoy reading that. Would you mind if I sent it to you? Yes, I'd mind. Right? Would you be offended if I sent you that article for you to look at? You seem to be really on top of the neighborhood. Right? So all I'm doing is trying to find inroads to get them an item of value. So when you drop down to page 3, and I would say if you're going to learn or memorize anything, go to value, trade scripts, and powerful questions. Would it be valuable if, or would it be of value to you if? Right? Would you be offended if? Keep in mind, that is probably like the no-fail question. Because no one's going to say, yes, I would be offended if you called me. I would be offended if you sent that to me. I would be offended if you sent me a flyer. No one's going to say that. So it's like the 99% chance that you're going to get their contact information if you wrap something on the end of that question. The other thing is just a quick close. And don't underestimate this as they walk in and you ask them, like, are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Well, I live in the neighborhood. Thank you so much for coming. May I ask your name? Excellent. And what's your phone number? Like, we have this hang-up that we can't ask for a phone number. Okay. Don't be hung up on that. Quite honestly, by the nature that you have knocked on their door, you've mailed them pieces of mail, you've put up signs, you've opened the door, you're doing them a favor, and they've walked through the threshold of your open house, you've earned the right to ask those questions. Another great question. If you've had a conversation about what they're looking for, they say, wow, this isn't quite right, but we really love this, and you have a few more questions in there, and they share what they're looking for. Awesome. If I found the perfect house, or if I found what you're looking for, how would I contact you? Well, that's easy. Like, we just have to know we fail if they walk out and we don't have any bit of contact information. Okay. The next question I love. So if you've had a conversation, but for some reason you haven't worked around or haven't figured out a way to get their contact information, this last question, as I teach my agents, this is the fail stop question of the open house. Okay. Memorize it. It's a script. Use it. If someone's going to walk out the door without giving you their contact information, how often has that happened? They walk out and you think, man, they would have been a good person to connect with. I wish I got their contact information. This one is hard for anyone to say no to. And I got this from Kasia Oleg. Many of you may know Kasia. She's an awesome agent, I want to say in Oklahoma, but does a ton of open houses, and I love her system as well. She says this, and I have borrowed this and stolen it and shared it with as many people as possible. She says this, you know what? I have so enjoyed talking with you and would love to keep in touch. Would that be okay? Well, how are they going to say no to that? You've enjoyed talking to them. I've still enjoyed talking with you and love to keep in touch. Would it be okay if I called you to continue our conversation? No, thank you. Like, think through that. That would be a very awkward ending. And you know what? If they say no, thank you, so be it, right? That's okay. But I will tell you, I've never had someone to that question say no, thank you. No, I haven't enjoyed talking with you, so I would prefer you not to ever call me again. They're not going to say that. Even if they don't want you to call them, that question gets you the permission to call them. I've so enjoyed talking with you and would love to keep in touch. Would that be okay? Great. What's a good number to reach you? What's a good email address in case I find something or whatever, right? So you bring it back to the conversation. Now, what does that mean? You better have been conversational, right? You better have asked them questions, because if you haven't talked with them, you can't say you've enjoyed talking with them. But see, between the door-knocking script, between those introductory questions, and between these value trade scripts and these powerful questions, I will tell you, you package anything at the end of would it be of value to you if? Would you be offended if? Thanks for coming. May I ask your name? If I found what you're looking for, how would I contact you? If that email bounces back for some reason, what's the best number to reach you at? Right? I've so enjoyed talking with you. Would love to keep in touch. How could I do that? Those conversations, right? The 30 minutes of practice, let's call it, and quite honestly, every time I go through this, understand this is practice for me. We need to practice these conversations, role play with each other. Find someone in your office, find someone on your team, find someone in this group to role play these questions or introductory scripts with. I guarantee you your contact ratio will go up, right? Your contact information. Even you'll move from just getting an email to getting a phone number. You move from just getting a name to getting an email. You'll begin to get better at that. I promised I would share one other opening. I have not used this opening, although Ben Kinney's team uses this opening, and I thought, well, what a great opening, quite honestly. Depending on our personality type, find something that works, but this is working for them, so I wanted to share it, and this is what he says. Their open house agents will reach out, they'll shake their hand, and they'll say this. It is three sentences, you can memorize it. It says, basically thank them for coming. Great, my name is Chris, thanks for coming. In my experience, there are two kinds of people that come to open houses. Right? So if you're taking notes, I'll give you some time. In my experience, there are two kinds of people that come to open houses. They're either the person that wants to know what their home will sell for, or they're the person that's looking for a home. Which one are you? Now that's pretty simple. That's pretty upfront. And they have a choice. Am I a seller wanting to know what my house is worth, or am I a buyer looking for a home? It's not too unlike, are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood, right? Immediately you're trying to figure out, are you a buyer or a seller? Because I'm interested in finding one of those two types of people. So Ben Kinney's opening, one more time. In my experience, there are only two kinds of people that come to open houses. They're either the person that wants to know what their home will sell for, or they're the person that's looking for a home. Which one are you? And then what happens? Then go through the rest of your scripts. So choose one of those openings. I heard that this past week, and I loved it, and I put it in the course just so that we have another option there, because I thought it was really valuable. All right, so we talked last week about providing value. Here's what I want everyone to do. On page 5 of your workbook, we have this section called Providing Value. Providing Value. The first section says 5 items of value to have at every open house. These are going to be your go-tos, right? These are going to be the things that are there every single time. We shared 5, 6, or 7 of them last week. But see, your personality may not be my personality, right? Probably isn't. So perhaps statistics aren't you, and you don't believe they ever will be. Well, I'll challenge you a little bit in the sense that if your market is heading towards a shift, you have to become the economist of choice, right? Gary says that in Shift, in order to provide real value, people are going to look to you or need to look to you as the economist of choice. But on page 5 this week, I want you to think through, what will I commit to having at every single open house? Right? The actors, the pendings, the solds, the total market overview, the S&P report, a list of open houses, the digital flyer, RMLS stats, Right? The other things that, depending on what kind of property I match, I will have is just one copy of the book Flip, one copy of the book MREI, right, the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and one copy of Your First Home. Why? Because I'm not there to give it out, but it is free. So in other words, I will have those books there. So if into my open house walks an investor, right, someone that wants to flip, I will let them know, you know what, I want to show you a copy of a book, and I'd love to get you a copy. This is the only copy I have here today, but would it be of value if I got you a copy? Right? Your first home. Every first-time home buyer. That book costs $10. You realize that on Zillow you pay about $80 to lead. So spend $10 and commit to getting them Your First Home book. And when do I get that to them? At their consultation, when they set it up with me. So again, after that conversation, we've had such a great conversation. I'm super excited about you buying your first home. I have a really cool book. I only have one copy with me today, but would it be of value if I got you your own copy? Great. Right? And then what do you need to get? Their contact information. So again, those are 3 other items of value that our company provides. Right? Flip, MREI, and Your First Home. Every time after Family Reunion Mega Camp, when Gary does his economic forecast for us and then shares those slides, I have that slide presentation as well in my items of value. Why? Because I know those charts, I can speak to those charts, I can send those charts if I'm someone that's highly engaged with the economics. We have to become the economic of choice. We have to have value. We have to know what the value we provide. And I will tell you this, guys, if you did nothing else, if you botched all your scripts, but you just have that value, you will show up so different than any other agent that they're going to meet at an open house. Remember, if they're visiting open houses, do you think they're only going to yours today? Well, if it's Wednesday afternoon after school, probably, because you're the only one out there doing that. But if you're doing a weekend open house, understand that they will meet 3, 4, 5, or 6 agents that day. And I would guarantee you that after you go through this system and after you go through this course and as you show up the way that you're going to show up, it will not even be a competition who they choose to work with. You just need to ask them who to work with. So on page 6 of your workbook, we're going to come back to this landing contact information conversation. Landing contact information. One of the things that I think we need to discuss is just the mindset, right, the psyche of getting that contact information. Here's the only reason why we don't. We all want it. We're all spending time there. Somewhere in that conversation or somewhere in our own conversations in our head, we have convinced ourselves that people are very private and don't want to share contact information, and it's awkward for us to ask for it. I've never heard it better explained than one time at a mastermind with Gary Keller, where he said, you have to believe that the work that you've done prior to that point in meeting them has earned you the right to ask for it. Now, I will say that sometimes we don't earn the right to ask for it, and in that case, don't ask for it. Right? If you haven't earned the right to ask, don't. However, if you've done a quarter of our system around the open house, every single person that you meet on the street, that you call, that you door knock, or that walks to your door, we just have to mentally believe that we have earned the right. We have done the work to ask them for their contact information.
Yeah, I would do it. But it looks...
And until we get that, or until we truly internalize that, then we'll have hesitation, or we'll pause when it comes time to ask for it, or we'll ask for email because it seems a little bit non-intrusive, or less intrusive than a phone number. But one other thing that comes out of Shift, and actually it's in MREA as well, Gary says, understand conversion ratio is always higher voice to voice. Email conversion ratio is always lower and always will be. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. Getting a phone number improves your conversion ratio. So think about that. If I need 10 contacts on a email versus 3 contacts on the phone, well, the more likely I am to get that phone number, the less open houses I need to do, the less people I need to talk to, the less people I need to call. Like, we just have to get very clear that we've earned that right. One of my favorite sections in Shift, and I may have shared this on week 2, One of my favorite sections is Gary says, we get hung up because we believe if we ask them for their phone number, we're going to come across as pushy. If we ask them to work with them, we'll come across as pushy. If we ask them, right, to give us their email address, we'll come across as pushy.
You're going to be here in the morning.
Gary said, we need to get over it because pushy people are pushy, right? And non-pushy people aren't. Period. Right? If you're pushy, just acknowledge that fact and understand, well, that's who you are. You're going to be pushy. But if you're not, asking for their contact information doesn't automatically cause you to be pushy. I love that section of shift because it gets us clear that by the nature of the fact that they came to your open house, you've already done them a favor. Now have them return the favor and give you their contact information. So, what do you do once you get that? Keep in mind, that's where that Google Doc lead sheet comes in. Part of our assignment was building that out last week. If that is not built out, and we're doing an open house tomorrow, or Thursday, or Saturday, or Sunday, understand it's an important step that we need to have. We need to have that name field, that phone number field, that email field, their address field. Why? Because my goal is to get all of those, and those fields remind me to ask. Those fields remind me to ask that question.
How do you do it?
We're going to have the lead source, right? Was it at the open house? Was it door knocking? Was it circle prospecting? Am I going to tag it?
Yeah, just keep it open.
And then lead type. Future seller, future buyer, immediate buyer.
I don't know how to do that.
And then in my notes, what house did they come into? What conversation did I have?
Okay.
You'll see. It'll be just like a
Whatever is going to remind me to continue to bring value to them. Whatever is going to remind me to continue to bring value to them. But remember, these three sections play on each other. We land contact information by very clear about what value we have to provide for them. And by the nature of the fact that we spent a couple hours preparing for this open, by the nature of the fact that we got the digital folder put together, by the nature of the fact that we looked for the other open houses and have a list waiting on my iPad to share with them, by the nature of the fact that I have active pending results to share or the economic report to share, don't you think your mindset is going to be more of a conversational mindset? I want to share this. I did my work. I spent that time building it. Now, who am I going to give this to? So landing contact information really rolls or shows up because we know what value we're going to provide, and the only way to provide it is by scripting through your open house effectively, by understanding what that introductory conversation is, what those follow-up questions are, what those value trade scripts are. And again, last question, I've so enjoyed talking with you, and let's keep in touch. Would it be okay if I called you to continue our conversation? See, those come out of my mouth without me even looking at them. Why? Because I've said them so many times, they're now just part of my conversation. You might say that slightly different, right? You might say it slightly different, and that's okay. But if we show up engaged, if we show up actually truly believing that you have value for them, that's going to come across. And by very nature of just following this system, you will get a higher percentage, not everybody, but a higher percentage of contacts per visitors at the open house. Questions around scripting, around the value pieces, around getting that contact information. Remember that worst case scenario, everybody that walks through that owns a house in that neighborhood, you should add to a future seller campaign. They might not be immediately selling, but see, my database is rich of future sellers. Why? Because if I've ever gotten their name at an open house, they're in the database. Right? I get their last name, I put them into that Google sheet, and then my virtual assistant or my assistant or myself early on pulls up that last name, pulls up the county that they're living in. I do a search through title, and I find out, hey, there they are. That was his name. That's the house they live in. They go into my database. I don't have email or phone, perhaps, but I have their mailing address. They get a thank you note, and then they get put on our follow-up campaign that we've talked about previously, right? I sent you that outline, but we'll actually next week be talking a little bit more about follow-up, right? Now that they've come, now that they're on our Google Sheet, now that they're in the database, how do we continue to follow up? Any questions surrounding what we talked about this week? Okay, here's our assignment for week 5. Build out that open house lead sheet. If you haven't completed it, build that out and make sure that it's easily transferable or even uploadable into your eEdge or Top Producer or Follow-Up Boss or whatever you're using as your database. Find someone to role play your open house questions with. I know it's going to happen, right? Eyes are rolling. People are, well, yeah, that's just, that's an assignment, but I don't have to do it because no one's checking. Your business will check, right? Your business will check. The results that you get in an open house will tell you whether or not you've role played. So don't skip assignment number 2 and then get out there and do an open house. Get out there and do an open house. Don't fall into the trap that this time of year people aren't out, because I'll tell you, I got an email last week. Last 4 weeks, $1 million in escrow from one of the participants on the call. Right? I think we added 17 people to our database personally here in the Portland market from open houses this past weekend. I don't even count escrows. Why? Because open houses is a database business for me. So I know how many people showed up. This period between that Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday is a very, very busy one. Show up differently in your marketplace. Get those open houses scheduled. If you need me during the week, you know where to find me. Email me, reach out to me, Facebook me, call me. I'm here to help with anything at all. Let's make it a great week and look forward to next week. Thanks, guys.
The grout lines.
This session is no longer being recorded.
Okay, I think you're good then.
Goodbye.